Welcome to the second video in our GuacChain series, which is a review of an exam that was given in the spring of 2020. In this video, we'll set up IB outlets and IB actions. In exams, I give students the names of values and data structures so that they can easily compare their work with a solution and to offer some consistency so results can be graded quickly. Now, this is an easy one, so if you're comfortable with the techniques, you can always pause at the question and complete on your own. Otherwise, follow along. Let's code. When we create IB outlets and IB actions, what we're doing is we're creating a connection from the storyboard to our code. So I'm going to click on our viewcontroller.swift file, then option click on main.storyboard to get in our side-by-side assistant editor mode. Then I'll control drag over to create our labels. The first one is this top big 0 here. That's going to be taco quantity label connect. Give myself a little bit of room here. The next one is burrito quantity label. That's a UI label as well. Click connect. Next up, chips quantity label, connect. And the last menu item is horchata quantity label, connect. Now we're going to want to access the values in each of these steppers. There's lots of ways to set this up, but we'll use that most basic technique that we learned in previous videos. And that's to create an IB outlet for each of these steppers. So we'll control drag over. Our first one is taco stepper, then burrito stepper, chip stepper, and horchata stepper. Now I'm also going to want to update these total figures down here, so I'm going to control drag over from this Bitcoin label. It's going to hold my Bitcoin values and call that Bitcoin total label. And I'll control drag on the one below that, and I'll call that dollar total label. Also, next up, we're going to want to get the selected segment from our segmented controller, so we need to access that. We'll control drag over from the segmented control, and we'll call that the currency segmented control. And we don't need this green comment in view did load, so we'll highlight and delete that. Then down below, we'll make a little bit of room, and this is where we'll add actions for each of our 4 steppers. So we'll control drag over from each of those items, and by convention, we put our IB actions just above the last curly in our class. The first one is taco stepper pressed. Make sure that you set the type as UI stepper. And then the other ones are burrito stepper pressed, chip stepper pressed, horchata stepper pressed. And we're also going to need an IB action to be able to tell when the currency has been changed. So we'll control drag from our segmented control, and we'll call that currency segment pressed. Set the type to UI segmented control. Now I can click on the X in the upper left-hand corner of the storyboard to get out of assistant editor mode. Now I'll add some space in between my different functions here, give them some breathing room. And inside each of our different IB actions for the steppers, the code is going to be very similar. So we'll start off with our taco stepper pressed. We'll set that to taco quantity label dot text so that we change the text property of this label. And we'll set this equal to sender, and that's because in our connection dialog box, we selected the type to UI stepper. Our sender variable indicates which stepper was clicked on, and so inside the function, we can refer to this sender constant and have access to all of the different properties and methods via code completion. So we'll say equal sender dot, and to access the value of the stepper, we say value. And look, when I start to type in value, notice what code completion says. It says that value is a double, and that's the numeric value of the stepper. So a few things here. We don't want it to show up as a double because we don't want there to be a decimal point after it. Not only do we want to get rid of the decimal points, but we also want to convert this to a string so that we can insert it into our label. So I'll press return to accept value. Then to convert this double to an int, I'll precede this with capital int and then open parentheses and then finish this with a close parenthesis. That will get rid of any decimal points. And then I'll wrap that in string interpolation. And so in front of the int, I'll say double quote slash open parens, and at the end of this expression, another close parens and close double quote. Now in the other 3 IB stepper actions, I'm going to have the same thing, but I'm going to change my quantity label. So I'll highlight this line that I just wrote, copy it with a command C, and then paste it into my other 3 stepper functions down below. But I just need to change the labels to, working from the bottom up, horchata quantity label, chips quantity label, and burrito quantity label. Now let's build and run, and to be clear, all of these functions do pretty much the same thing except for one variable, which is the label variable. So if we wanted to, we could refactor all of these into a single function and use tags for the steppers and the labels. This would tighten up our code, but the tags are a little tougher to read. After our app is done, I'll show you some additional techniques if you wanted to consider this kind of refactoring. But here we go. App looks beautiful. I'll crank up my Takamotos to 10, crank them down to 5, no problem. How about some crypto chips? Go up to 12, go back down to 0. You can't get below 0. That's great. We'll leave that at 1. How about a little horchata? We'll add a couple of those. Looking good. And so are burritos. All right, next up, let's access that API and figure out the cost of this stuff in Bitcoin.